before you get too excited, no, Amain is not releasing a car at this point in time. What you're seeing on screen right now is the B7 4.1 that they did a video series on a little while ago. Once upon a time, this buggy was used as a carpet racer for mod, then kitted out for everything you could possibly think of for 13.5 racing. In this video, we'll be talking about everything that I did to the buggy to make it a dirt buggy, along with everything else that Amain did to the car, along with its first maiden voyage, at least in my hands. Before we begin, I'd like to thank my channel's sponsors, Amain and Brett Bowen especially for allowing me possession of this buggy to use it for a few videos and races coming up. I'll be linking everything used in this particular build in the description below, along with their modern analogs if applicable. With that out of the way, why don't we get started? Now the car you're seeing on screen right now is the car after I ran it at the last race at Beach RC's Myrtle Beach location, so some parts of the car itself are already swapped out for others. For one, there's the center differential. Running a slipper clutch on dirt, specifically high grip dirt like you'd see in most places in these days is possible, even for belt drive cars like the Schumacher L1R with the rear only slipper system. But generally when given the choice of running a slipper or center diff, most of the time you're going to want a center diff. How thick you want the center diff to be will entirely depend on how high grip the track is you're running on. In this case, since Beach RC was a little bit more abrasive today, I decided to run 500 CST diff oil. While we're on the subject of diffs though, it's important to note that the diff gears in the B7 4.1 are not the LTC gears you get in the CE version of this kit. This isn't a huge deal in my opinion, as you can just run thinner oils to get a similar effect. In this case, I decided to run 10K in the front and 7K in the rear with standard gears on the inside of the diffs. Next up we have the shocks themselves. This was the biggest thing with the upgrade that I wanted to do with this particular buggy. If you don't already know, the B7 4.1 came with 12mm shock bodies, and the 7.4.2 and later on CE came with 13mm shock bodies. 13mm shock bodies have naturally more pack than the 12mm shock bodies and thus are a little bit better for people who run on much smoother tracks, specifically carpet with flat landing zones off of jumps. We'll get more into those shocks a little bit later when we're talking about the track, but for now just know that this is an upgrade that I wanted to do. The only other thing that I actually did to the car to make it a dirt car was change the sway bars. I went down from 2.0 in the front, 2.1 in the rear, all the way down to 1.3mm in the front and 1.4mm in the rear. Now that we got some of the modernizations on the car, why don't we talk a little bit about some of the upgrades the car came with from Amain. This was already done on Amain's channel a little while ago, so if you want to go more into detail, down to the minute detail about what's been done, I'll leave a link in the description below to that specific video. The main upgrade you can't see but can absolutely feel in the drivetrain is the ceramic bearings. Now, a fair bit of warning. I wouldn't recommend a full ceramic bearing kit for dirt races, especially outdoor dirt races. In this case, I'm only going to run them until they start to go bad. What I'd recommend for dirt racing would be a hybrid bearing setup that doesn't cost your firstborn child and will last on less than perfect racing surfaces. If you only plan to run on carpet or turf, then you can go ahead and get that big boy ceramic bearing kit if you have a soul to spare. The next thing you can actually see on this particular car are these finned titanium turnbuckles. Now I absolutely could replace these with some more modern 3.5mm turnbuckles, but for the most part I find that unnecessary, as these ones simply aren't broken yet and they're kinda expensive to get. Like I said before, I'll leave a modern equivalent in the description below. Specifically the J-Concept ones, as I think these are the ones that they came with. Now one thing I unfortunately can't link in the description below is the carbon side guards of the car that comes with from ProTech, as they are discontinued. What I can do is link the carbon plastic side guards, as they serve a similar purpose while being much cheaper. A bunch of other smaller upgrades include titanium ball studs, aluminum wheel nuts, and aluminum drivetrain parts. Looking at the electronics, we actually don't have much in terms of extra expensive stuff to go off of. We have a Reedy 510 speed control, which is more good for mod motors, as once again this was a mod car at one point, and a Reedy 13.5 motor installed, and this one is a bit on the cheaper side, as you can get it for around about $100 including tax. Now I'll be honest, Reedy electronics aren't my first choice for a few reasons, like lack of overall support compared to other brands like Hobbywing, but they worked well for me at the Palmetto Classic, so I'll include them anyway, along with what I plan on installing in the future for this car in the description below. This also goes for the ProTech servo and batteries. What you're seeing on screen right now is the last race at Beach RC's Myrtle Beach location, so I won't be getting another run of this track or track layout anytime soon. It's also important to note that it's not me driving. This is another driver named Chad Buckland. He ended up making it into the Amain of the Expert mod class of the Palmetto Classic. The reason I'm showing you this footage is so I can slow down this much cleaner footage and show you the track. After the front straight, there is a long right-hand sweeper that goes into a very bumpy suspension check. It's important to note that many who didn't have 3-hole pistons, or much thinner pistons with bigger holes, struggled to clear this section consistently. I was among those who struggled in this section. After this, there's an off-camber left turn and a switch back onto the top left-hand corner of the track that goes into a climb up the hill. There were a couple ways to take this corner, but if you didn't have the grip, generally you'd want to set up for a little bit more late apex. Once you got to the top of the hill, then you made your way down the hill, then back up another hill into another right-hander at the apex of both the corner and the peak of the hill. After going down the hill, you then go up into a smaller hill, into a 180, then a small double. This double was basically a grip and power check. After the double, you're then immediately going into a half bull circle. On the exit of the half circle, you're then put onto a small run into a small tabletop that has a right-hand turn, which then leads into a bigger tabletop. After this landing of the tabletop, you're then set up for a 180 into another tabletop, after which you're set up for another half bull, which then spits you back onto the front straight. This was the track they used at the last Masters of Dirt, and it wasn't an easy one for sure. Very few people were getting clean, consistent runs, so how did the 4-wheel drive do? Pretty well, all things considered. Since this was my first time driving a 10 scale in about a year and a half, my skills could have been much more refined had I been given more prep time and practice. I ended up in the B main for the 13.5 4-wheel drive class and ended up missing the bump by about 2 spots, unfortunately. Again, due to my own lack of consistency. However, when I was on it in some form of a rhythm, the Buggy felt very good to drive with all the adjustments. Be sure to stay tuned for a few more 10 scale races coming up this year. I plan on attending events like the Vintage Class of Champions at the end of this month, and the ProTech 10 scale race in Lucama, North Carolina at World of RC in July, where I'll be running this car along with another car I will be reviewing in the future. Again, I can't thank Amain and Brett Bowen enough for giving me the opportunity and helping me make this video possible. I look forward to making more content again with it. I'd also like to thank my Patreons, Michael Williams, Dave Armstrong, Rob Bedingfield, Caden Merks, Ian Petrie, Buddy Howell, Jeffrey Kunz, James T. Anderson, Shane T. Ruth, Gable Barber, Max from RC Hobbies, Dakota Burnett, and especially Morrison Watt. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.